Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries RPG podcast with John and Hannah.
Hi.
And today we're going to be looking at some of your lovely voicemail messages you've sent in to us. And our first message is from Jason at the Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Take it away, Jason.
Hey, John, Hannah, Jason here. Just listened to the RPG Concern episode. Great episode. Really enjoyed it. Some good advice there. And I think the discussion between you guys is really helpful. You know, it's okay that you're not totally on the same sheet of music and you didn't read off a script. You know, I think that kind of conversation is very helpful. And I was glad to hear it. So, no, you didn't solve the world's problems, but you gave everybody some great food for thought. So keep up the great work.
Hi, Jason. Thanks again for calling in. Glad you found it useful. Hopefully we'll be able to do a few more episodes like that without upsetting too many people.
Yeah, and obviously we're not setting out to upset anyone, but as you were saying, Jason, we do think these sort of discussions are worth having. And even if, like, myself and Hannah don't agree with each other 100% on any of these things, it's worth sort of listening to other people's opinions and having a bit of a discussion and back and forth, because if you don't, how are you ever going to like evolve and change your own opinions, really?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for getting in touch. So let's see who we've got up next.
Hey, John and Hannah, this is Tim Shorts of Gothridge Manor, calling in, finally. Let you guys know I've been enjoying the hell out of your episodes, especially the Fiend Folio ones. One of probably my all-time favorites, Monster Manual, and going through the monsters. When I listen to one of those episodes, I'm ready with pencil and paper to steal your guys' ideas. I really do enjoy you guys' back and forth, and especially when you guys get in a disagreement is something and going just like the energy, and it just works well. I think I do like it. So I wanted to say thank you very much for that.
So that was, of course, Tim Shorts from Gothridge Manor, who, if you don't know, runs a Patreon where he regularly sends out these small sort of mini adventures, NPC cards and stuff like that, which are really great. He was kind enough to send us a mini adventure in the Pines recently, which was inspired by our Needleman episode. So thank you very much for that, Tim. Very much enjoyed reading that. And thank you very much for your kind words. Well, we've moved on to the Monster Manual 2 now from First Ed AD&D. We're not sure where we'll go after that. We might look at some more sort of different monster books, some sort of slightly more left field stuff. We'll just see what people want and where it takes us. But we certainly hope to carry on doing the monster episodes because we enjoy making them, especially the bits where we get to discuss how you could use them in your games. So as long as we've got interest and people are interested in hearing them, we'll keep making them, basically. So thanks very much.
One of the episodes I just recently listened to was the whole X card thing and a bit of the controversy with that one. At first, I was one of those people that was, X card wasn't for it. I thought it was kind of dumb. Just my kind of narrow-minded thinking. But when I was thinking of it, I was just thinking about home groups. And, not conventions work. Like my home group, X cards are just unnecessary. I'm sure it is for most home groups. But a convention, I think it is, especially these days, because it's just a different way of thinking for gaming for a lot of, especially the younger generation. And sometimes things, now you have the obvious things that might offend people, but there's a lot of those other things that you wonder why it offends them. Not that you want to get into it, but certain things. I don't know if I'll have time to get in this. I might end up doing it, Jackson, on your thing. I apologize for that. But I had a couple of personal experiences with that. Now I'm going to do a second one here because it looks like I'm going to run out of time. So the only time that I can remember where I used a X card, a virtual X card, is actually during a home game where I was playing a thief guy who had set up a guild, and I had signed other folks to set up other businesses. And this one guy came back and the GM was describing this, I guess, prostitution business. And then he was talking about getting a shipment of kids in. And I'm just like, whoa, time out. Like, let's not go there. Because, I work with a lot of folks who dealt with that. They're offenders. They've been on both sides of it or whatever. So therefore, I was out of the game and I was back at work, and I've got real faces connecting to this fantasy, and that's the last thing I want to happen when I'm playing my game. And it's just unnecessary details. And then another time where I was at a convention, this girl that we were gaming with was actually using the X card almost as a weapon against the other players. She was just basically, I think, stifling any type of creativity that other people were having at the time. None of it really had any, I should say, I couldn't see any nastiness or horribleness to what they were doing. It was just regular role playing, but she used the X card to try to stifle it. It was kind of ridiculous. Now, I'm not really sure what the issue was with the girl. I mean, she was fine otherwise, but I can't even remember the details because we're talking about years ago. But I remember I was going to attack one of the NPCs. We were questioning somebody, and I was kind of playing a rough, tough character, so I was going to attack him. And she touched the X card because she thought I was being too violent, or I was I can't remember what her term was, but I was excessively graphically violent when I said I was going to attack, and I was just confused by it, and it got to the point where I just said, you know what, and the GM kind of seemed to be placating her and everything, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to pass on this game. I just excused myself because I didn't want to make a scene because I'm a confrontational guy. I'm just one of those people who, and it's not like I'm being nasty about it, but I want to question them, figure out that why, I'm not going to go on Twitter like you guys were talking about and talk about it. I'm going to confront the person who is having the issue, so I can do that. But that's just the way I am. But I love the episode about it, and I think you guys are perfectly qualified to talk about it. So don't say that. You guys absolutely are. So take care, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Hi Tim, glad you found the episode useful. I do very much agree that it's something that shouldn't ever really be needed in your home games with your friends who you know. But the concept of it is something that could occasionally be useful even there. But in convention games, because you're working with people that you don't know, usually, it's very rare that everyone at the convention game knows each other and knows the GM. It just gives you that safety net to know that it's there. And I'm really gutted to hear about this girl sort of misusing it in that way. And it does sound like she was probably misusing it a bit just to see how far she could push it. But then I don't know what the circumstances of her and the other players at that table are. Maybe she knew some of them and knew what direction they were going to take that joke in. I really don't know why you'd get upset about somebody's description of going and backstabbing an NPC. But again, I'm not her. Maybe she should have thought a bit more about which games she was joining and looked for the ones that said they were going to be like nicey nice cooperative games rather than your standard sort of D&D type games. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I pretty much agree with you, Love, that I think X cards, whilst as Tim pointed out, he has used it in like a home game. I think they're far less useful in home games, where people can just talk about that and you're generally more comfortable with the people like you're gaming with. They're definitely more useful in a convention setting.
See, it's not that I don't think they're useful in a homebrew game. It's that I think you shouldn't need them in a homebrew game because it should already be tailored to the tastes of the GM and players. Because why the hell else are you doing a homebrew game if not to tailor it to your homebrew group?
Yeah, I mean, I think my issue, as I tried to get across in the episode with using them in conventions, I think they're a great tool, and as long as everyone's sensible using them, like with everything, they're fine, they do a job. Like I say, and I think if we could rely on everyone to either, as Tim was saying, just have a sensible discussion, or just use whatever safety tools you've got in sort of play and leave it at that, that'd be grand. But that's not always the case. I mean, we know from a few recent examples of like where these tools have been available, and people have either said, oh well, I didn't feel comfortable with using them, and then they've gone on to complain about a game afterwards. And it's like, well, if the safety tools are available and you don't use them, at what point do we say that's kind of your responsibility? Because if you make all these safety tools available to people, and then someone afterwards goes, oh, I was vastly offended by that game, oh, it was terrible, you go, well, you didn't say anything. Well, we put safety tools there so you didn't have to go into details. And they go, oh, well, I didn't feel comfortable using the safety tools. What else should the games master and the conventioneers have actually done? I think it's a difficult subject, and when we said that we don't think we're qualified, it's not that we're not qualified to talk about it, although thank you very much for your kind words, Tim. It's more the fact that we don't think we're going to like sign and seal it and wrap it up in a bow and go, that discussion's been dealt with, this problem has been solved.
So I think one of the other points about it being a convention, particularly that we're talking about, is you never have to talk to those people again. You might walk past them 2 or 3 more times that day, but you never have to talk to those people again. If you're having a bad game, just put the X card down and leave. It stops disrupting everybody else's game if they're all enjoying it.
Yeah.
And if you do want to then go and talk to the GM about it after the game and discuss what's happened, the GM's always happy to hear, but they're not going to be all that upset if one of their players has to leave partway through a convention game.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, as Tim was saying there, where he said he decided the game wasn't really for him, he just excused himself and went, thanks, but no thanks, and went on his way. And as he said, he didn't jump on Twitter or moan about it. He just went, that game's not for me, and went about his business and did something he enjoyed far more. That's entirely the right way to approach it, for my money. I think the idea for me, sort of in principle, of these sort of tools is you use them so that some sort of resolution can be reached. If you use safety tools, or you don't use them, however you see fit, but then you're still sort of hitting the social media, sort of like getting other people outraged about it, that's when problems can sort of spill out and things get blown up beyond all proportions. Whereas if you look at it really in terms of like sort of black and white, seldom is anyone in any like physical or actual danger at a game. I would say the worst you're going to get at a game is if a subject comes up and you don't like it, you're going to feel a bit uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not to sort of say that to throw shade at anyone who like has issues that make them feel uncomfortable with anything at the table, but you're not in any actual danger. You might feel uncomfortable, but you can leave that game. You probably don't have to speak to that person again, as you were saying, love. It's a convention, so I think it's when things go outside that arena, and like I say, we're always going to have this problem with like social media and stuff like that, and then other people who jump on the bandwagon who probably like weren't even involved in the same game, and all of that could have been stopped by either just having a frank discussion or by just going, thanks, but this game's not for me, all right, I'll see you in a bit, and then just leaving and going and doing something else. And I think at some point, again, not to sort of cast any shade on anyone who's like having issues, but I think at a certain point we have to take responsibility for our own enjoyment in a game. And whether that's using an X card, having a discussion with the GM and saying, oh, I'm a bit uncomfortable with this, or whether at the end of the day it's just you going, do you know what, this game's not for me, and moving along. I think those are the right approaches. However, sort of keep fanning those flames of like blowing up like an incident into like out of all proportion just seems like so ridiculous to me that I think that's when we start having problems. But anyway, thank you very much for your call-ins, Tim. Very much appreciated. So let's see who we've got up next.
Hey, John and Hannah. This is Randy from Michigan. Your last podcast on concerns about X card issues and stuff I thought was very good. A friend of mine, Joe, and I have started a podcast on Anchor, Biggest Geekus, and we discussed that recently on a session 0, just a little bit. I thought you guys handled it a lot more in depth. I was impressed, or I should say touched by Hannah's experience with the Templar situation. I guess I've never faced that, so I've been a little more callous, kind of thinking people are trying to work their psychological issues out at the table, but there's probably something to that. I don't know if I was at a convention, I would use the X card. Obviously, I would if they demanded it, but I wouldn't care if people got upset about something. But I also would be very upfront. We're not inclined to get into tough subjects at our table. We fade to black when sex scenes come around and things like that. So I thought you guys did a good job. And if I were you, John, I wouldn't let it get to you. You're trying to publish. Don't let what I would call the cancel crowd get you down. Do your best. Thanks again. You guys do a great job.
Thanks very much, Randy, for your call. Very much appreciated. As with our answers to Tim's call-ins, we're glad that this is sort of like people are responding to this episode, to be honest, and we hope to do some more sort of discussion episodes, not specifically around this topic, but around things that are like maybe concerning us, as well as that interest us in the RPG arena. And yeah, I think it's like anything, it's difficult because obviously it's a very like emotive subject. And people, when like emotions get high, people don't always sort of sit down and think, oh, well, I can just have like a civilized discussion about this. And hell, I'm no better than anyone else in that regard. If like I get like set off by something, I'm as likely to have a rant as the next person, as I'm sure you'll know if you've listened to this podcast. But I think at the end of the day, you just like you were saying at the end of your message, Randy, you just have to keep doing your best, doing as best as you can and as well as you can do. And what more can you do, really? Okay, so let's see who we've got up next in the bulging post-sack of doom.
Hey, Hannah and John, Jason here. Just want to say I enjoyed your episode on trolls, and it definitely reinforces the idea that if you can make each monster, the character's face, an individual thing, right? So it's not a troll, it's the troll, or the bridge troll, or the ice troll, right? And, of course, you don't even want to name it. You let them name it. So you'll never say the word troll. They'll call it whatever they want. But, these are good examples of how you can make creatures individual, and each one should be different. I mean, yeah, goblins, maybe every goblin they face is kind of sort of the same, although you can definitely throw things in there where some goblins are more clever than others, or this goblin might be able to cast a cantrip, or, whatever. But as far as anything other than like a fantasy race, like orcs, goblins, whatever, but any kind of monster, they should be individuals. There should never be duplicates of weird monsters, right? So, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I really think having them individualized and you never naming them as a troll or whatever, and that, brings out that the Witcher feeling, or like that movie, was it Monster Headhunter? Have you seen Headhunter, John? You should check that out. Anyway, talk to you later.
Thanks very much for your call, Jason. Yeah, I'm pretty much with you on the individualizing monsters. It's one of the things I've tried to do in my old school Essentials campaign. Like a lot of the creatures that are faced are sort of animals or variant animals like owl bears and stuff like that. And they're pretty much just like animals, a bear's a bear when you look at it at the end of the day. But the rest of the sort of unique, in inverted commas, creatures that I've done, I've used the Lamentations of the Flame Princess, a random esoteric creature generator, to like create some new monsters, so they will look unique and they won't be things that the players are familiar with. But I'm also going to throw in some stat blocks where I've just sort of described them a little bit differently, or like tweak the stats maybe a little bit, so that the players don't know exactly what they're facing, but I haven't got to create the monster whole cloth. And I think you're right, this does create that sort of element of like discovery and the unknown in your games.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Jason's got a little bit more to say. Take it away, Jason.
Hey, John, Jason here. Really enjoyed the Fate episode. As far as rambling on, all I can say is so please ramble. I love ramble episodes. Love hearing your thoughts on things. I would love to get, maybe you can organize a Fate one shot sometime. I'd love to play in one and do that. And I've thought about, I haven't talked about like ICRPG lately or some of the things I used to talk about a lot either. So maybe I need to readdress that. But yeah, run more Fate one shots when I can play, and ramble on, my friend. Ramble on.
Hey Jason, thank you very much for your call. I'm glad you enjoyed my sort of Fate filler episode, and I'll probably try and slip a couple of cheeky filler episodes in there. As I've said in a few of these sort of episodes, like mine and Hannah's schedules are a bit sort of up in the air at the minute, so when possible, we're trying to get us both together like we are doing now to record these episodes. But if we can't, I might slip a cheeky sort of like episode in there where it'll probably just be me rambling on about something that's either annoyed or interested me. So don't worry, that it's not like my rambleometer's going to run short anytime soon. As you can hear, the cat agrees with me. In terms of Fate, I mean, as I said in the episode, I think that the community sort of drifting apart, that I used to play a lot of Fate and one-shots in, and the sort of later or more recent books of Fate not really grabbing my attention as much, led to a bit of a downslide in my enthusiasm. However, I did recently play in a Dresden Files Accelerated one-shot, which was run by John Drury for Matthew Bryan's birthday, and we reprised old characters that we played in a game like years ago. And I was playing a Valkyrie called Annika Kjellberg, and very much enjoyed that. Had great fun with that game. John Drury's an excellent GM. All the players were excellent. And it really reminded me of like just exactly what I enjoy about that game. And John's talking about maybe doing like some extra like sessions, like a linked series of one-shots. So hopefully we'll do that again and we'll get to play those characters again. And I pretty much did get my hands on an Infinity Stone at the end of the session. So you can't go far wrong with that. Speaking of one-shots as well, it just so happens that this weekend Jason is running a Barbarians of Lemuria one-shot, which I'm going to be playing in. I'm very much looking forward to that. It's a game I've got, but I've never had a chance to run or play, so can't wait to give that a try. And who knows, Jason, maybe if I get the chance when my schedule's settled down a little bit, maybe I'll be able to slide a cheeky little Fate one-shot onto the schedule. Stranger things have happened. So have you got anything else on your mind then, Jason?
I really enjoyed your review of Tim's module. I'm a patron of Tim's, and I don't know if he ships them overseas, but, we get hard copies of, well, if you back him at a certain level, he mails you all those modules. And I'm very happy I backed Tim's stuff. Tim's stuff is always high quality, puts a lot of effort into it, a lot of thought into it, and they're just neat, fun little adventures. Tim's a good guy, and he's one of those that definitely I recommend people check out if they're interested in neat adventures they can just plug into their games and neat content. There's always something worth borrowing or concepts in his adventures that are worth using. So and some neat maps and whatnot. So yeah, thank you for covering that. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Jason. I love Tim's content. For Zine Quest 2, I backed his Hunters in Death. I was very happy with that. And we were both really chuffed when he said that he'd been inspired by our Needleman episode to do like a little adventure. And then we were doubly chuffed when he sent us not only a hard copy of his In the Pines adventure, but also one of his NPC cards. They're of great quality. Unfortunately, the thing with Patreon is there's so many like really creative people out there doing great stuff like Tim, and unfortunately my pockets are only so deep. I already back a couple of Patreons. Hannah does a couple of Patreons. I support a couple of people on like Anchor, like Glenn Hallstrom of Old Man Grognard, and I don't really have the spare readies to get into any more Patreon at the moment. If that changes, who knows? I mean, definitely Tim's would be like high on the list if I had that spare change. But if he does anything like Zine Quest or like products like that, I will certainly be looking to support those. I think his content is really great. Okay, and we're going to round off with a voicemail from Kevin at the Red Caps podcast. Take it away, Kevin.
I'm just getting my winter tires put on here. It is that time of year in Canada. And while I've been standing in the long line waiting to get the vehicle serviced, I was listening to the vast majority of your Session Zero. And I got to say, I really enjoyed hearing how the setting and everything came together. I kind of half want to ask if I can play Ben Kenobi, or no, sorry, Ken Benobi. But yeah, it was a great Session Zero. Sounds like everybody was right on point. And thank you for putting it up. I think it needs to be done more often by more GMs. Anyhow, I'll be interested to hear the rest of that game when it starts kicking off. And hope you guys have a great day. Take care.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Greatly appreciated. If you've not listened to Kevin's podcast, the Red Cap podcast, I highly recommend you give it a listen. There'll be a link in the description of this show. And it was in fact due to an episode of Kevin's that I decided to upload the audio recording of my White Star Session Zero for the campaign that we've just started. And people seem to have responded pretty well to that, and I agree with Kevin. It's a useful thing to hear how other people do their Session Zeros, because it can inform how you do your own. And I've uploaded a few to YouTube in the past, but I think this is maybe only the first or the second I've put on a podcast. In terms of the White Star campaign going up, I've not done any plans to do it as an audio only version like I'm doing with my OSE campaign. If there's interest, who knows, maybe. But the first episode is up on my YouTube channel, and I'll be uploading further sessions up there as we sort of run them every other week. Now, obviously, we're sort of getting into birthday and Christmas time for us here, so the schedule is probably going to be a bit messed up until after Christmas, but we'll soldier on as best we can. But thank you very much for your call in, Kevin. It's greatly appreciated. So that's it for this Postbag episode. If you'd like to get in touch with us, leave us a message, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, suggest future topics of conversation or for episodes that you'd like us to discuss, then you can leave us a voicemail using SpeakPipe on the link in the description of this show, or you can send us an email to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. We've got an episode coming up tomorrow, which is about the Aboleth, and either at the end of this week or early next week, we'll be getting our Twitter poll up for our next monster episode. So keep a lookout for that. So until we see you again, take care, stay safe, and keep gaming.
Bye.